Good afternoon again. So I'm going to read to you a little bit of a book called Be the Best at Science. And we've been talking about some basic science concepts. We've been talking a little bit about what is science. We learned a new word called gravity, right? Does anybody remember what that word gravity means? You can think about that and answer that quietly to yourself if you want. But today we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about something called the scientific method. And believe it or not, we've been using the scientific method all year in class. In fact, when we did our big science project for the Science Festival, that was the scientific method. So there's a lot of steps to the scientific method, and we're going to just break things down here. And this book is going to help us to understand what those steps are. People use science every day to do all types of things, but sometimes science can seem tricky. Don't let that stop you. Learning a few simple tricks can make even the biggest science experiment more fun. So that's a big word, experiment, right? We've probably heard that word used before. Experiments are a very important part of science. We use a set of steps called the scientific method to answer questions or solve problems in science. Using the scientific method makes sure that the answer or outcome, that's just a fancy word for answer, of an experiment is something you can trust. So remember, we talked all about how science was understanding the world around us. So when we do science, we have to make sure that what we think is happening is actually happening. Otherwise, it's not really science. So the first step in the scientific method is to ask a question. Ask what you would like to know about a topic. Now, we spent a lot of time asking questions, right? When we did our Egypt projects, we studied Egypt for a while, and then we decided what we wanted to know more about, and we wrote down some questions. That is the first step of the scientific method. So for today, I want you guys, we're going to stop right there. Like I said, we're just going to do little bit by little bit. I want you guys to take a piece of paper and write 5 questions that you don't know the answers to about anything in the world around you. Okay, or you can draw 5 pictures of some things that you're curious about. So 5 questions or 5 things that you're curious about. Because asking questions is the first step in the scientific method. So when you ask questions, you are actually being a real scientist. That is what real scientists do. They ask questions and then they find ways to answer their questions, which we'll get into later. So you go be a real scientist now. It could be anything in the world at all that you see around you, or maybe don't even see around you. Anything that you are curious about, write down. All right, see you next time.